Hey YouTube, so I've brought you top Pokemon to invest in Great League, Ultra League, and Master League. They just recently, last week, came out with the announcement that they are no longer doing, like, remote raids are too expensive now. So, and someone also asked me, like, can you do, like, budget options for these leagues? So that is what I'm going to do the next 3 days. Great League today, Ultra League tomorrow, Master League on Monday. Pokemon that you should invest in for these leagues that are non-Excel and non-legendary. So I took off the XL Pokemon in this list here. There's still a couple legendaries on here, but I'll just ignore them. And we're going to go over the top Pokemon that I think you should build for this. So I'm actually going to kind of skip over the top 20 because if you actually, I'm going to point you back to my other video because I go over the top 20 Pokemon in Great League already that you should build. So like Stunfisk, Pellet, like I talk about all these Pokemon already. So I'm going to link that video in the description below. You can go check that out. I will just give you the like 2-second version here. Stunfisk, yes, it's like a cheaper Registeel. Scrafty, I put it on like my second tier. Pelipper, I say is not the top flyer. I would prefer Noctowl, and personally I prefer Altaria as my number one flyer. Swampert is a must if you don't have it. I don't know what you're doing. Trevenant is a must as well to a certain extent. Lantern, super strong, yes. Gliscor, I said, was sort of overrated. I'd rather have other flyers. I don't think I talked about these darks here, so I'm going to actually start right in this area with Umbreon, Mandibuzz, Mantine, Ninetales, and then go down from here. Because Umbreon is an interesting one. So Umbreon was OG safe swap in Great League. It was like one of the first Pokemon that everyone used back in the day as a safe swap for Great League, and no, Ultra League was too high, so it was definitely just Great League. It still, I think, in my opinion, has a lot of play, and it has almost become one of the safer Pokemon again to use as a safe swap. So what I mean by that is the safe swap has evolved over time. But for the previous like 3 seasons before the Noctowl buff, it was Sableye and Lickitung. But now Sableye and Lickitung are kind of in trouble because of Noctowl. So if you want a Pokemon that can absorb damage and just kind of hang in neutral situations, Umbreon is a solid option. So you're dark, you're going to lose to your fighters that are also dark, you're going to lose to your fairies that are charmers, right? There's not much you can do. And then Metachamps, there's not much you can do. But even Registeel that can like blast zap cannons, it's a loss, but it's not too bad. And these all out of these other matchups are just kind of like hanging in. And this is what you want in a safe swap, right? You want a Pokemon that could just like absorb damage and hang in. For the most situations, it can. And then you start picking up some wins against other Pokemon. Walrein, Charmander, you don't see a ton of Skarmorys anymore, but like Charizard, Swampert, Lantern with Spark, right? Noctowl. These are some good wins against the meta that you will see. Sableye, people still use Sableye as a safe swap. And then Trevenant, hardest answer to like Trevenant in there too, right? So I think Umbreon still has a ton of play as a safe swap. You do need Last Resort on it, so it's a community day move. If you don't have that, you will need it on that, or else it will not be as strong. So one, definitely worth investing. So the question is, do you need to build an Umbreon and a Mandibuzz? The answer is no. Do they play the same sort of role? Yes. And so what is the difference? So why I don't like Mandibuzz as much is you just pit that flying just adds a secondary weakness. So here's the pro. They're both tanky AF. The pro is that with that flying, you neutralize fighter. So your main losses will not be to fighters. They will just be to charmers, which is a problem. But what I don't like about the flying is you add 2 weaknesses. 1, ice, and 2, rock. And the problem with that is you have these Pokemon like Bastion and a Ninetales and Galarian Stunfisk and everything hunting for Noctowl right now, right? So just going with a Mandibuzz just seems like a not smart position right now for the Great League. So if I'm using a safe swap, I would use Umbreon. Can you build both of them and go like a double dark in the back? Yeah, you can bait out with Umbreon and then try and sweep with Mandibuzz. Like I've seen that lineup before. I mean, Scrafty is the more normal double dark combo. Scrafty and Umbreon, because then you'd be kind of like really weak to Registeel in the back and stuff like that, right? So Mandibuzz, again, you can build it, not on my priority list. Mantine, I probably already covered too. Again, it's the same sort of thing. If you want a water flyer, I think Pelipper is better. If you want flyer in general, I think Noctowl and Altaria are better, right? So Mantine is an option, but the Bubble Beam, Ice Beam really, really limits it, right? Especially with lanterns everywhere, you have nothing to throw, right? So when you only have water and ice, lanterns, you don't have anything to throw. Wall range, you don't have anything to throw. Jellicent, you don't have anything to throw. So it just like when you're so limited with your charge moves, I don't like that. So not a priority for me. I probably already did cover Ninetales in my other video. But yeah, Ninetales is not a must, but its versatility is so strong. Shadow or non-shadow, there's not a ton of difference here. I don't think it matters too much whether you have the shadow or non-shadow. But again, with Noctowls everywhere, it's going to be the best answer Noctowl. It's going to be, let's just go see the domination, right? So you're going to dominate the flyers, Noctowl, Skarmory, and stuff like that. You're going to dominate darks because you're half fairy. You do decent against the fighters, like you do win Obstagoon, Medicham, Toxicroak, stuff like that. Hold tight against other Pokemon like Swampert and Pelipper and Lantern. So like this is what you like to see. Weaknesses, obviously Steel is your biggest one, right? Registeel, Galarian Stunfisk, Bastion that's going to just smack you down, right? And these are pretty hard losses. And then Water Gun Lantern is an interesting one. But most are running Sparks. You don't need to worry too much about Water Gun Lantern. But then it's just like Jellicent and Wall Range. So anything that's like a water type Pokemon that is going to, or an ice that's going to resist your fast moves, because then you need to get to a Moonblast, and if they shield up a Moonblast, you're in big trouble. So definitely worth building. Just it takes some team building covering all those weaknesses with the other two Pokemon. Shadow Machamp is the top ranked counter user, non-XL here. And the joke always is Shadow Machamp doesn't have a bad matchup. And it's because, and that's obviously not true, but I'm just going to come look at some of these, like what you think would be super obvious losses, which are like way closer than you think. Cofagrigus at 415, Toxicroak that resists all your moves at 438, Defense Deoxys that resists everything but the Rock Slide at 392. Like these are losses, but they're not bad. And it's basically because Shadow Machamp is just like so overpowered. And then you're going to take all these matchups, like you take it against Noctowl. I'm pretty sure that, will it require a bait to land a Rock Slide? Probably. Yeah. So you will land a Rock Slide here. And I got to imagine you're going to lose the Zero Shield. So some of these like wins and losses, yeah, because you can only get to a cross shot, which is still neutral, but they're going to get to wing attack and take you out. So some of these flyers wins will require baiting. But outside of that, like if you can bait properly and land a Rock Slide on these, like it's great because you can flip that matchup, which is insane. And then like you're going to defeat like even stuff like Venusaur. Like how do you, in what world do you beat a Venusaur with a Rock Slide? And that's the thing, like the why it's so scary to go against this Pokemon is that a Rock Slide from a Shadow Machamp will take you out between the counters and Rock Slide, right? For most of these Pokemon. So you have to like respect it. And if you bait, you can flip some of these matchups that are like insane, right? So I think it's kind of highly ranked because you're baiting so many times in this, right? Your Mandibuzz win, your Noctowl win, your Altaria win, your Venusaur win are all bait dependent, right? So if you take out baiting, it's probably ranked much lower, but it's just so strong with the Shadow version. Yeah, Shadow version in both Great League and I'll talk about it in Ultra League are probably worth building. If you have it, if not, that's okay. Jellicent. See, Jellicent is going to be a must for me in Ultra League. I don't know if it's a must for me in Great League right now. Just because of the meta. And again, if the meta shifts, sure. Right? But let's just take a look at some of these losses. Like Spark Lantern, 190. That's a huge loss. Registeel, 280. That's a big loss. Noctowl, 338. That's a decent size loss. Sableye, Trevenant, 342, 340. Like, these are such big losses in Great League against some of the Altaria, 367. Bastion, like, these are such big losses in the meta. And it's because, like, Jellicent excels in Ultra League because it is so bulky. The Surf does help, but not enough in this Great League meta to overcome it, right? There's such more variation of like Giratina Altered, and more Cresselias and the Cobalion and stuff like that, where you just like dominate in Ultra League, that you do not have those wins here. There are wins here, right? Beating Swampert is nice. Beating Stunfisk now with the Surf. The Surf made this matchup much, much easier. And against like your other, like Metacham is such an easy win now. Oh, they've always been easy wins, but Metacham Deoxys, like, so it's got some nice wins, but quite honestly, just given the state of the meta, I would not be in a rush to build a Jellicent in the Great League. Kommo-O, honestly, I'm not even going to talk about this one. So it's got close combat, and why it's probably ranked so high is because you're, so like you lose to, I mean, you're Dragon and Fighter, right? So you lose to Ice, you lose to Psychic ones here, you lose to Fairy, so Trevenant as a Ghost. So Machamp knocked out, right? There's a lot of losses. I am going to park this. I'm not going to say you need to build this one because it's not even on my top. It's not my top 3 dragons to build for Great League, quite honestly. Altaria is one. And I will go over Dragonair whenever it comes up here. Vigoroth, this one is so tricky for me because if you look at this record, 2020, if you look at that sort of graph here, it's very concentrated in the middle, right? So obviously you're weak to fighting and you have nothing to throw at ghosts, or Trevenant in particular. You can throw Bulldoze at ghosts, but for the most part, it's just like ghosts and fighters are going to dominate you. And flyers. Flyers is a little trickier, but you are running counter, so it's kind of just like you're a little bit in trouble there. But it's not even all flyers, because look at where you start getting close. Like Sableye is a close loss, but it's a loss. And then you get into like, you're beating Swampert. You're beating Mandibuzz the flyer because it takes neutral to counter. You're beating Noctowl as a flyer, because even though you're not a fighter, right? You're normal typing and they're normal typing, so they're taking neutral. And you can just go straight body slam to beat Noctowl here. And they can only get 2 sky attacks off. So you will beat that straight up. And this is where Vigoroth becomes very, very interesting, because there are a lot of good wins here against these Pokemon. Swamperts, Noctowl, Lantern with Spark, the Darks, Obstagoon Umbreon, Bastion, Registeel. Like, these are great wins. I've used it multiple times since the meta has shifted. It lacks 2 things. One is, not having 3 things. Not having a stab on your counter is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. 2 is it's very glassy, right? So why would you run a counter user that is, if you're going to be weak to fighting, you're weak to fighting. And I guess I was going to say, why wouldn't you just use Shadow Machamp? I would probably just use Shadow Machamp, even though this has better matchups in neutral situations. The problem is I just don't like its matchups against some of the main meta that you're seeing here. Mainly like if you get locked on a Trevenant or Metacham or something like that, you're just like, not only do you lose, they are farming up a ton of energy, right? So it's really, really tough to run this Pokemon. And I've ran it a few times, and it's just like, you flip some of those, like, you win some of those matchups against like Noctowl and stuff like that, and it feels great. And then you get like locked on a Metacham, or you get locked on a Trevenant, and you're just like, why am I using this Pokemon? So it's kind of like high risk, high reward. I won't say don't build it. I definitely think it has play, especially in like limited cups, but it's not like one that I'm rushing to build. Whiscash is, first of all, Whiscash is like a great sort of like limited meta Pokemon, as we saw in the last cup that happened. It's one of those Pokemon where, like most Mud Boy, well, it's not like most Mud Boys, because if you want to use Mud Boy, use Swampert. It is the short version of this, right? Because there's no reason to use a worse version of Swampert, because you're just going to get lit up by the grass anyways, right? Trevenant and Shadow Vic is going to destroy you, and now Pelipper, you really don't have anything to throw either, at least. Oh, we have the Blizzard, but like you're just going to get outpaced to it, right? It's spammy, but Mud Bombs don't hit hard. The thing with I find is, like, unless you can land a Blizzard, the Mud Bombs come quick, but you don't need to respect them. Like, most of these bulky Pokemon take like 3, maybe 4 sometimes Mud Bombs to take them out. So For me, it's like worth building for like specialty cups. It's not one that I need to run in the Open Great League by any means. Shadow Abomasnow, I don't remember if I talked about this one or not. I definitely did talk about it because it will have play in some of these limited metas coming up. So I'm not going to talk about it here because I did talk about it a lot. Yes, again, rough against steals, rough against fighters, but you cover those weaknesses and you are taking out some very strong meta Pokemon, Swampert, Noctowl, Altaria, Lantern, Trevenant, right? So great core breaker for the current meta of Great League. So yes, Shadow Abomasnow, and Shadow Abomasnow is probably ranked way higher than normal Abomasnow. Yep, almost 20 points. This is one where I think Shadow matters. Why does the Shadow matter here? Because Great League, you're so glassy anyways that you're not going to be able to take like more than 2 moves anyways, right? Your 2 moves are going to take you out of neutral situations. So I would rather just have that extra damage bonus on there. Regirock, Cresselia, Deoxys, I will gloss over because they are not, they're sort of legendaries or pseudo legendaries, I guess, or are they all legendaries? I don't know. Toxapex. So I built one up because at the time it was the greatest answer to, what was it such a good answer to? Was it Walrein? No. I mean, you're going to win the Walrein, barely beat the Shadow, and then you beat the, yeah, so you did answer Walrein. What was it the main answer to? Let me just look through the list here. I mean, it was the main answer to Azumarill, but Azumarill kind of went away pretty quickly. But you got some like wins here against like the Darks, Defense, Trevenant, Noctowl. So you do have a lot of play. The problem is I know that is very, very limited right now because of Swampert, Stunfisk, Registeel. And these are like hard losses, right? So when they resist the poison, Brine is a terrible move. And then Sludge you need to land, but Sludge is resisted by everything here. So you are basically just running like you're useless against these Pokemon. And same thing, Jellicent resists everything. And Cofagrigus, you can only go Brine, but Brine is a terrible move. So there's just so many losses. It's not, again, has play, will be like top ranked in certain metas when certain things are like if Swampert, Registeel, if like Steel is banned, it jumps up substantially, or Ground is banned, it jumps up substantially. So not a must for me for the Open Great League. Definitely worth investing for like specialized cups. Aurorus, I think I already talked about Aurorus as an ice. Yeah, I did. I talked in my other video. I talked about Aurorus, Walrein, Ninetales. Like, yes, I think all 3 of these have play. All 3 like build an ice type Pokemon. My order is A9, Walrein, and then Aurorus. Just because Aurorus is also rock typing, so you pick up a double weakness to fighting, which is not ideal in the meta. Shadow Drapion, I'm not going to cover because I did a whole video on Shadow Drapion saying I can't get this Pokemon to work. I cannot get this Pokemon to work. I know it's super spammy, but it's just like, it's so glassy, and all the bulk of these other Pokemon, sometimes you can like grab a shield in mid, but for the most part, you're still losing that mid game to these bulkier Pokemon. So I don't love it in the Great League. It's probably way better in the Ultra League. Did not love it in the Great League, so it's not a priority for me to build. Zweilous is actually maybe the 3rd dragon I would build before Kommo-O there. So Skarmory, again, the state of the meta, Skarmory's not bad, but like Lantern, Bastion, and Registeel, Swampert, Galarian, Stunfisk are just like like you can't, it's clunky to use. Even some of the wins are not like huge wins because you're like half normal, half steel typing, right? So you still take neutral to counter users. Plus the flying like brings back some weaknesses to like electric and stuff. And it's just like, I don't love it. It's not so good anymore. So it's Skarmory, not even like the 5th flyer I would build. Zweilous is an interesting one. I'm not going to cover it in depth here because I would prefer Altaria first, and I would prefer Dragonair second because I don't like the dark typing, secondary typing on this because you just pick up unnecessary weaknesses against fighters like Metachamp and stuff that are in this meta. So in terms of Dragon, sure, it's an option to build, but I'm building Altaria and I'm building Dragonair before I'm building Zweilous. And Dragonite is here at 45. Let's just cover that now. Too glassy. Quite honestly, I would rather just run Dragonair. You're so glassy. You're so weak to some of the main meta here. Even superpower, you like, is not going to KO a lot of the things that are weak to you. Like Dunsparce, Vigoroth, Lickitung are all still losses, even though you can land a superpower. So you're too glassy for this meta. So yeah, not a priority for me either. Machamp already covered. Regice. Froslass I definitely have covered multiple times. Froslass is a must build for me because not only because any meta where like a couple typings or it's limited to like 3 or 4 typings, and Froslass is one of those typings. Froslass is always like the top ranked Pokemon. It is just so versatile. Avalanche and Shadow Ball hit so hard. Powder Snow charges pretty fast. So yeah, Froslass is a must for me. Lurantis, I built up one for Ultra League. I really like using it in Ultra League. I just don't think it has play in the Great League right now. Just based on the meta, right? Charizard, Noctowl. There's so many. The problem is there's way more. It seems like there's more flyers that are viable in the Great League than there are the Ultra League. So that really limits it. And not that there's more ice here, because again, there's Ninetales, there's whatever. But like Metacham is a fighter, even though like fighter doesn't, you're doing neutral to each other. Like Metachamp just still like outbulks you. Stabilize. There's some good wins, right? Because you're doing against the Darks and Lantern is at like Lantern Swampert. You use this for like to kill. This was a Swampert killer because it's a grass, so it resists every single one of the moves. Like as a Swampert killer, like look at 921. So if you want to use that, but then if they cover you with a Noctowl, they're just gonna like farm up to 100 and come out with a ton of energy. So that's why I don't love it for the Great League right now. Togedemaru. If you've watched my videos, go build this thing. This thing is insane. I love it. This is look at this graph. This is the epitome of win big, lose hard sort of thing. Like when you get matched up against a ground boy, like a ground, Swampert, Stunfisk, Diggersby, you're screwed. And then like Trevenant as a grass typing is going to basically resist everything. Registeel is just going to out focus blast you. Like there's so many bad losses in here, but goddamn, there are so many good wins in here. Just like domination of the flyers, domination of the waters. Like these are huge wins. Like 871, 884, 89. Like those are huge wins. Altaria can't throw anything against you. Pelipper, you're just going to light up. Wild Charge gets so fast. You beat Lantern. I've played that matchup multiple times. You beat Lantern, no problem. It's the true equivalent of like win big and lose hard. So you need to try and cover all of these weaknesses when you're running this Pokemon. So you need Swampert, Stunfisk, Trevenant, Deoxys. So my first option is looking at this is to pair it with Trevenant, right? Because Trevenant will cover all these weaknesses. Except Dunsparce and Diggersby, so you may need some sort of like fighter too. And then, yeah, so you might want to do like a fighter plus Trevenant, maybe Metacham, like, right? How creative. Metacham, Trevenant, and Togedemaru. But this Pokemon has become, because unfortunately my Ninetales, RIP, is done with this meta, Togedemaru has become my go-to Pokemon for Great League. It is so strong. I'm just gonna, because I've talked, how long have I talked for? 24 minutes already. So I'm going to not just go down every single one of these. I'm just going to go down to ones that I think jump out at me. I already talked about Walrein. Dugong, again, Dugong is the same problem as Mantine. Icy Wind, Water Pulse, you can get wall too easily. Munchlax is an interesting one. Munchlax I love using in like smaller cups, and as you can see, like very sort of close distribution in the middle there. Record is terrible, but you're not using it for its overall record. You're using it sort of as a safe swap. And again, like 340, like these are losses, but you kind of hang in there. So it's not my go-to safe swap anymore. but I like it in like limited cups and stuff. So Munchlax, I think if you can just build, you don't need to like focus on building it up for Great League, but it's definitely one to build up. Dragonair, 66 and 68. I have a non-shadow rank 1 that I use, and it's just like, again, you're gonna lose. There's some you're gonna just get dominated against, fairies and ice, right? You're dragon, not much you can do about those. But having that Aqua Tail and Body Slam spam combined with the Dragon Breath is just like, this is kind of what you want to see with it. You're just like close losses against some of like the main meta, Umbreon, Scrafty, Deoxys, Registeel, right? Close loss to Registeel. Right on for Noctowl, 500, beating Altaria, Cofagrigus, Lantern. So it's a very, very strong Pokemon built on the right team. So this would be my, outside of Altaria, Dragonair is my second Pokemon to build. Mew, I'm not going to spoil it. So I shot, so you're going to see my old background for 2 Pokemon, Beedrill and Mew, for videos that I shot like weeks ago that are coming up next time Great League rolls around. Mew's one of them. Basically, I said the short form version of it is just build Sableye. There's no reason to build Mew. Just build Sableye. Quagsire, again, Quagsire is one of those like super good in like limited metas, but not great given the current state of Great League. And Cofagrigus is again one of those. Cofagrigus is one of those that I would build up for limited cups because it's so dominant. Like, and it has its play in Great League, right? You got good wins against Machamp, Deoxys, Swamperts, Registeel too. But again, just given the state of the current meta, you just get absolutely walled by Darks and Sableye, right? So you just get like, you're in huge losses here. And then you have really nothing to throw at Noctowl. So I've got to imagine, oh yeah, right there. Noctowl 227. Anything that's normal, you don't have anything to really throw out except the Dark Pulse. So it's too limited right now for Open Great League, but can be very, very, very dominant in restricted cups. Charizard, is Charizard that different with the shadow here? 67 versus 78. It's strong. Honestly, quite honestly, I think Charizard has way better play in the Ultra League than it does in the Great League. It's just a little too glossy for the Great League. And the meta just kind of not kills it, but the meta is much tougher for it in the Great League compared to the Ultra League, where it's more wide open to do well. Surfetch, again, Surfetch is more an Ultra League Pokemon. Beedrill I will talk about in my upcoming video. There's nothing, if this was last time I would have said Ninetales, but Ninetales does not have play right now, unfortunately. Galvantula, I have such a love-hate with Galvantula because Galvantula is one of those Pokemon where it can dominate. It can also just get like lit up. So again, same thing. It's kind of like my Togedemaru. You're just going to have such a hard time against ground, Stunfisk, Bastiodon, that you don't really have anything to throw at it. And you lose against like when you're electric and you lose against 2 water types because of their secondary no, you just straight up lose to Water Gun Lantern, which is crazy. Because it's very, very, very glassy in the Great League. It's glassy in the Ultra League. It's super glassy in the Great League. And then Swampert's ground typing just kind of kills you. But you know what? It's got, and why I also like it though is because like it can help you so much, right? Noctowl, Sableye, just like neutral situations. You beat Registeel. I guess if you like bait and lower their attack, they still need 2 focus bots to take you out. So I guess it kind of makes sense. So Galvantula is definitely one worth trying. Just know that you're probably going to have a love-hate with it too. It can be like your best friend and start dominating matchups, or you can just get like put in against a Galarian Stunfisk and you're just like nothing to throw and you're drawing dead on it. So I don't love Pokemon. Well, I love Togedemaru, so that's not totally true. But yeah, so I think it's worth building. Just no team building. It's a little trickier. And that's quite it, honestly. Venusaur is at 110. I've got to imagine the shadow is probably, no, 132. Honestly, there's no reason to run a Venusaur right now when you have Trevenant. I think Venusaur is probably one of the better grass type Pokemon to run. But if honestly, I would just build up Trevenant because Trevenant just has such more versatility in this meta. RIP my Ninetales at 112. There's nothing else really on this list that's jumping out in my mind. There's other Pokemon that I love in, like I've used Samurai, I've used Blastoise, I've used Ferrothorn in limited cups. I've done a Ferrothorn team, and Ferrothorn's kind of sneaky. Like Ferrothorn's a sneaky Pokemon you might want to build up because, I mean, look at those losses though: Fire, Steals, Flyers. There's just like a ton of losses, but like get it on like a Lantern or like any water, you're fine in that neutral situation. So again, it's like a third or fourth tier Pokemon. It's not one that you need to build up by any means necessary. And I can't imagine there's anything in the 130 brains that makes me want to say build this Pokemon up. A lot of these other Pokemon, like I love using a Raticate. I think it's bulky. I think it has play in limited metas. It just like you get lit up by fighters because you're double weak, right? You're normal and dark, so you get lit up by fighters against the main meta like Registeel and Bastiodon and Swampert. You lose there too, but like it's bulky. You lose to Lantern too, so there's a lot of just normal type ones that you just lose to, but it's got some wins as a dark, right? You're going to beat other darks generally because your fast moves are better. And like again, I don't want to say like, oh, look at the wins against Cofagrigus and Jellicent because like you're dark, so obviously you're going to win those. So it's one that I've built. It's one that I like using in limited cups, but it's not one that you like must build. And same thing, like Bewear with no community day move, Shadow Claw Superpower Stomp that I've used. It's like the main staple in one of the metas I'm using right now. So again, don't need to build it for the open league because Noctowl, Lantern, Swampert, yeah, Crystal, Machamp, like everything every main meta Pokemon is there. So not one worth building right now, but if you want to play limited metas, it is pretty strong. But yeah, that is basically it for Great League as we're at the 32-minute mark. That should be enough. So definitely some off meta Pokemon there that you can build up. I like a lot of these in the 30 to 50 range, right? That I've mentioned in here. Like Togedemaru I like any of the ice type Pokemon, whether it be Ninetales or Walrein or where's that rock type Pokemon? Aurorus. Like I think any of those are strong in this meta. I like Dragonair, which is a lower one on here that I would definitely worth building. But yeah, nothing else that like Cofagrigus in limited cups for sure. Cofagrigus is like definitely one to start looking out for if you don't have it because Cofagrigus is very, very, very strong. Actually, it was like super strong last season. It's just like before Cofagrigus was like build it with 2 answers to dark, but now it's like build it with 2 answers to dark and 2 answers to Noctowl, which is much trickier to do, right? So that's why Cofagrigus has kind of lost a bit. Anyways, that is it. I will do one for Ultra League tomorrow and Master League on Monday, half because I know these are useful and half because I am away for Easter long weekend here. So appreciate watching, appreciate the thumbs up and comments. Let me know if there's any like Pokemon in Great League that you use that are like not the top rank that you have like great success with. Like for me, it was Ninetales in the past and Togedemaru this season. So let me know if there's any for you that you use. And that is basically it. So appreciate you watching and I will see you guys in the next one.